Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome. My name is Rachel Sisko, and I am the Assistant Project Coordinator of the Rural Health Initiative. The mission of RHI is to engage partners, to share ideas and expertise, and to support communities in improving health and while stimulating a higher level of wellness across the state. Thank you all for joining us today for our webinar, Better Together, presented by Mary McCourt. A few technical details before we get started. All lines have been set to mute. At the end of the presentation, we will have a question and answer session. At this time, I will unmute all lines. If you wish to mute your line during the Q&A, you can do so by selecting the microphone icon in the WebEx control panel on your screen. Pressing mute on your phone will work as well. You can also submit questions in the chat box on the right side of your screen during the duration of the presentation, and they will be addressed by Mary during the Q&A session. If you type in the chat box, please make sure you are sending your comments to all participants, otherwise comments will only be seen by me. Once the webinar is over, you will have the opportunity to provide valuable feedback for RHI through a brief survey. The survey will automatically pop up on your screen and will take just a few minutes to complete. Thank you again for joining us today, and I will now roll the ball over to Mary so she can begin her presentation.
Thanks so much. Okay. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. So this is the third and last presentation on what we're doing here in Missoula. Specifically, I've been focusing on the school environment more so than the community environment, and that's mainly because we've done more work on the school environment. So today we're going to talk about community partners ensuring healthy nutrition during the school day. And this is a little different presentation. It is a combination of kind of two ideas, but I hope it's clear. So I want to give a quick review for people that might not have been involved in the other two presentations. So in 2008, we started our third grade BMI surveillance project here at the health department and created Let's Move Missoula. And at that table, we invited both the superintendent of county schools, which is 12 districts, and then also the superintendent of what is called Missoula County Public Schools, which is about 64% of all school-aged children that go to public schools in Missoula County. And so they sit at that table, which was a real bonus for us. We actually had 3 summits to talk about how children get, what are the factors that a child will end up as one of our third graders that's obese, and then what can we do about it? And there were a variety of ideas, but mainly we came up with a recipe, and then we had to figure out how we, specifically the Let's Move and the health department, could find a way to work with our school districts. So today I'm going to, so how we started our work was really by defining the problem, and this is our trend data. We went from, in 2008, 13.7% of third graders were obese, and in 2014, 10%. So we're happy to see that. We don't know if that'll hold. But what we know down on the bottom graph is that 32% of 10th graders are above the healthy weight range. So we still have a lot of work to do. So how we are working with the bigger school district, the school district with about 65% of the kids, is through the Graduation Matters Missoula initiative that they have. As most of you know, or all of you probably, the USDA demands that each school district have a wellness council. And what we found in MCPS, Missoula County Public Schools, is that there was a council, but it wasn't a very active council. and in fact, it might have even become defunct. But what we knew was that their initiative, the district's initiative on Graduation Matters, that we fit really well into that because we have the science behind us that well-fed and physically active kids are better students and therefore more likely to graduate. So it took about 2 years for us to put our hand up at these very large community meetings with we being the health department. What about the health? Let's look at the health. Can't we look at the health? And it went on deaf ears for quite a while, but thankfully at the same time, Let's Move Missoula was forming, and there were important people that sat at both of those tables. So it evolved that there would be a student wellness council, and on that council there are the 4 pillars of health. So physical activity, and I talked about that last year. Behavioral health, so this includes dating violence, rape, suicide prevention, drug and alcohol use prevention, those sorts of things. Today we're going to talk about nutrition health, and then the personal health has to do with immunizations and chronic disease management. So these pillars meet monthly during the school year, about 10 times a year. And then we have a leadership team where all 4 pillars are represented. And the nutrition team is a very active, very well-populated team, community team. So here are the members of our nutrition team. The food bank, the Eat Smart Coalition, which is here at the health department, Rebecca Morley. The American Heart Association, Amanda Cahill. We have Providence St. Patrick Hospital represented with the CATCH program. We have the district's food service director and assistant director. We have a vending company called Healthy Vending. The head of the district's nursing staff attends. And then, of course, the health department. We have parents. We have a liaison. We have the FNEP program. And we have a snack pack. So the food bank does the backpack program, and the snack pack program is a similar nonprofit program for high school students, and then Garden City Harvest. But I have to say that it's important that we hear all these voices, and it's wonderful that all these people are working on nutritious, helping families have more nutritious settings. But what really helps us in terms of the changes we want to make is the liaison from the district. Because what we know is that even though we sit on the Graduation Matters team, most of us on this list are visitors in the home of the school. And so we need to know what is feasible, what is workable. And with this liaison person, Carol Ewan, we have some immediate feedback on that won't work, that should work, I think that'll work. Let me talk to the superintendent or the associate superintendents and see where we can go with that. So my recommendation is that whoever your liaison is that that person is a champion and has the ability to visit with the administration. Now, in smaller Montana communities, it might be your superintendent that sits on your wellness team. I know that in Great Falls, we went to visit the Great Falls Public School Wellness Team, and they had a great superintendent as a member of their team. So it just depends, but the point I'm making is you can't ask the school districts to change something that they're either not ready to change or they don't understand why they should change it, or it looks too complicated. So this person really helps us with that issue. Okay, so the model that we're using is from the CDC, and what we're hoping for is that student access to healthy foods and beverages at school. So we only want healthy foods and beverages at school. And so these 4 green categories are all categories under the Smart Snack guidelines. So the school stores and snack bars, the vending machines, the a la carte, and in-school fundraisers. So the Smart Snack guidelines address all of those and what those should look like. So then the areas that aren't addressed by Smart Snack are the classroom celebrations, events, and non-food rewards, access to drinking water, and the school meals. So if we had all of these things working the way we want them to work, we would have, we know, better fed kids, healthier kids, and ready-to-learn kids. And then out here we have more of some other opportunities. So this is healthy eating, and so this would be your curriculum, whatever nutrition curriculum your district is using, and then what the policy is on food and beverage marketing. So if you go to high schools and Coke has all these ads showing, you know, sexy actors, blah, blah, that needs to be taken care of. And then what is your staff role modeling? I was in an elementary school the other day, and I just sort of peeked in at the staff lounge, and there was candy and a Coke machine, and I thought, well, that's maybe one of our next steps. And seriously, I think we've been talking about doing some worksite wellness for the staff, because if we want them to be teaching wholeheartedly from their curriculum, we need them to be thinking about their own health and how they're doing in a variety of ways. So that's the model that we're using, and this is the model we use to explain it to the school board, to the superintendent, and to teachers. So visiting Great Falls was a real eye-opener for us because they have the concept that the school should do no harm. And that's really, I think, a very legitimate concept to have, and it is a very difficult counter to be able to say, well, of course we want to do harm. No school really wants to do harm, but we want to put it in the forefront of how you do no harm nutritionally. So here's our recipe: breakfast for all in the classroom. We know this is the best practice. It's the best practice for a variety of reasons. We have children that come to school that are malnourished. They don't get to school in time often to eat. So if they have to go down to the cafeteria to eat, so they've already lost some instructional time, we know that there are children that can be stigmatized by having school breakfast. So this takes care of that issue. And we know that as we work at getting our breakfast better, that we will have better food in front of the kids so that they're ready to learn. And on our recipe, all food and beverages must meet USDA Smart Snack. Exception is lunches from home. Now, this would be not only those areas that the Smart Snack oversee, but we would love to see, of course, rewards and celebrations fit under Smart Snack criteria. And we really would love to see non-food celebrations and rewards, especially if they're physically active, so we get the double whammy. We don't have the Rosar cupcake. Instead, we have balloon volleyball or something. And we would like to see more schools participate in the fruit and vegetable program. So that is our no-harm recipe that we are constantly moving towards. So then we have a strategic plan, and the strategic plan, the first one, is, is education. We needed to explain what Smart Snack is, and we did that. We visited every PTA within the district. I think that was 11 PTAs. We went to every open house with handouts for the parents. I would never recommend this again. It was a waste of time and a waste of printed material when you look at best practice for education, but we did it. And one reason we did it was to show the principals that we were meeting about this issue and we were serious about it. And then our goal, too, is to look at accessibility. And we talked earlier about wanting to expand the fruit and vegetable snack program to CEP schools in addition to Title I schools. And we're looking at ways to expand the food banks backpack program. And then awareness. We recently, one of my coworkers was at a high school doing a presentation on health and was talking about the food that's available in the high schools, because we know that Smart Snack compliance is easy in the elementary schools, but once you reach the middle school, it becomes a little more difficult, and once you reach the high school, it is extremely difficult. So we haven't done this yet, but this is one of our goals, is to get students in the high school engaged in this issue of healthy eating. And then evaluation. Our goal was to complete Smart Snack assessment of 80% of the schools. We have done Smart Snack assessment of all the schools. So let's talk about the survey, the assessment piece that we did. This is a model, just of how we did this. So we divvied this up. There are 17 campuses within the school district that we're the major school district, and so we would usually double team it on reviews, and then we would review the store, the vending, the snack vending, the beverage vending, the cafeteria, and the a la carte. And our survey would have these three categories. And what we would do in the vending is literally take a picture of what was offered. So let's say it was a Nature Valley granola bar. We would take a picture of that, the size of it, and then we would come up and compare that with the calories, the amount of fat, the amount of sugar, and the amount of salt to see if it was indeed compliant. And we did that on every item in these three settings. And if we couldn't determine that, we would just put uncertain. So that was quite an endeavor that we put ourselves on. I don't think we knew at the beginning how difficult it would be, but I have to say that it was well worth our time. So then one of the things we learned from Great Falls was that we should be presenting our information to the health board. And so this is our compliance rates from 2015. So these three are the middle schools, and then these three are the Big Sky, Hellgate, and Sentinel are the three big AA. Seeley Swan is a small B school up in the Seeley Swan area, and Willard is our alternative school. So this is what we knew before we presented to the school board, and it was good data to have. It was very, very good data to have. And where we knew we were having the problem was in the school stores. So if you look at this 60%, basically the vending machines were 100%, and this is really all of where the non-compliance was, of course, in the stores. And we know that this has been a problem around the nation on how to get these stores compliant. And also we have, in the high schools, we have coffee carts. And some were compliant and some were not compliant. So we've been working on that. So the good news is that OPI came to visit. And OPI sent, I'm sorry I don't know the name, but I should send her roses, because she convinced our superintendent, who is new to his position, that we're out of compliance, mainly the high schools, and that we need to become compliant so that there is not a penalty assessed. And so they worked it out, and now the stores have a deadline, and the deadline is April 1st. And the reason that our superintendent allowed the schools to have a deadline, the meeting was before Christmas with OPI, was that he felt strongly they should be able to sell out their products. So I'll just explain what these stores, I don't know if everyone listening has schools with stores in them, but it was very alarming. One of the stores that we went to, first of all, it had 3 access points throughout the school, so you couldn't get away from the temptation of 11 different types of candy bars and Costco muffins. And the Costco muffins, we know, are anywhere from 650 to 1,000 calories. And the stores are allowed to be open during the lunch period. So we know that the district's lunch program has been losing a lot of money because kids at 11 o'clock are grabbing a 750-calorie muffin. And so now we have a deadline, and it'll be very interesting to go back and do our assessment of these stores after April 1st. And we're hoping that that we are much closer to 100% compliance in our stores. There's been a lot of pushback on this, and the major pushback is because these stores make a lot of money, and the coffee carts, and they support activities within the school. And you know, that's part of having schools that are underfunded. So basically these are fundraisers, but we need them to become healthy fundraisers and USDA compliant. Okay, so that was the smart snacks. So then on our model, one of the things that isn't controlled by smart snack regulations is what happens in the classroom. And so we have spent about 9 months fine-tuning a presentation for teachers, and I'm not going to present the whole presentation because it's about an hour long, but I'm going to present pieces of it, and we would be happy to share this presentation with anyone. We've done a lot of research on it, and we've presented it a couple different times, but we keep fine-tuning it. So what we know and what we learned from our physical activity team is that teachers, if you can teach the teachers that by doing X, Y, or Z, the kids in their classroom will be better behaved, more attentive, and be ready to learn, that they listen. And so we picked what we thought was the #1 problem in celebration and rewards, and that is sugar products, be it little Hershey bars or Jolly Ranchers or Costco muffins or Rosar cupcakes, whatever it is. So I'm just going to kind of show you the progression of that presentation. So we talked about that it contributes to childhood obesity, it impairs memory, learning, and mood, and it displaces nutrient-dense foods. And we keep zeroing back on why teachers would be concerned about all 3 of these things. So we first talk about obesity and the physical problems that obesity causes children. And these are problems, I mean, you can go to any 4th or 5th grade PE class and you can see a child that painfully is trying to run to the other side of the gym because that child is so heavy that it actually hurts. And so all of these things we know children are being treated for now. And type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset. There used to be juvenile diabetes, which is now called type 1, and adult onset. Well, we know that it isn't true anymore, that we have become a larger nation, and it isn't just adults that have become larger, it is children, and these are the health risks to these children. And I think that it's easy to forget what the emotional impact of childhood obesity is. And when we're talking about obese children and obese adults, we often, if not most likely, are talking about people with a high consumption of sugar. And so the emotional impact is the stigmatizing, the stereotyping, and the marginalization. And this just isn't from kid to kid. This can be teacher to kid or other adults to kid. Teasing and bullying, we know that kids have lower self-esteem, negative body image, and depression. So let's look at what the trends are in regards to girls. We know that girls that are obese are more likely to drop out. We know they have higher teen pregnancy rates. They are 3 times as likely as others to have sex before age 13. And they are 30% more likely to have sex with more than 3 partners during their teen years. And I remember when I researched this, I found this, and I really wasn't looking for it, but I was absolutely so shocked that I wanted to get this word out, because now what we're talking about is a combination of risky behaviors. So not only are they making difficult choices or bad choices about food, but they're also making bad choices about sexual behavior. And when you think about obese girls, this sort of makes sense that 30% more likely to have sex with 3 or more partners, because if you look at what our culture says a teen girl should look like, even a normal weight girl doesn't look like the skinniness and the model-esque and the actress look that is very much the cultural norm. And so it might be easier, or girls might say yes to a sexual partner just because it's one way to fit in, just because a boy is showing them, or another girl, showing them an interest when they don't see themselves as sexually attractive. So this is interesting stuff. With the boys, they have increased dropout rates. They most likely are the last person chosen on sports teams, unless they are one of those kids that is extremely fit and overweight. Lower self-esteem, they're not as, quote, cool. Increased rates of depression and withdrawal and isolation. So teachers want to know these things, and teachers need to also sharpen up their eyeballs if they are treating children that are obese or overweight in these ways. So in this presentation, this is a great video that we show the teachers on the addictiveness of sugar and how it affects the brain. And so I really encourage, if any of you are going to do some education with teachers on decreasing sugar in the classroom, that you use this particular video. And you'll be able to link to it directly when they send out my presentation. So I'm just kind of go through this in a different way. So you eat the sugar, you like it, you crave it, we know, and in the video it'll show the addictive properties. And then your blood sugar levels spike, and dopamine is released to the brain. Broccoli does not give you dopamine, but those of us that like sugar, and most of us, feel that dopamine release. And then you have, in order to deal with the spike in sugar, you have to secrete a lot of insulin to drop the blood sugar level down. So the blood sugar level goes down, and your pancreas says, oops, got to send some insulin. The blood sugar levels fall rapidly. And I in particular know this because when my daughter was 7, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So she went from producing insulin to not producing insulin. So we've lived with this since that year. So when the blood sugar levels fall rapidly, first of all, you have high insulin levels that cause immediate fat storage, and then your body craves the lost sugar high. And it really does. I mean, people that eat a lot of sugar, they crave sugar. It isn't just, oh, what's for dessert? It's what's for dessert right after breakfast, and what's for dessert right after lunch, and what's for dessert mid-afternoon. So then you move into the fourth stage, hunger and cravings. When you get low blood sugar levels, what your brain is saying, your brain only operates on glucose, so what your brain is saying, I need sugar, please, I need sugar. And so then you eat more sugar and you start this cycle again. So it's that dopamine release that gets the addiction going, and that's what triggers most addiction. It feels good. So then we talk about how does sugar impair memory and learning. So we can't, oh, I'm so sorry, there's something missing here, and this slide looks a little goofy, I apologize. We can't do experiments on children in regards to sugar. We can't give them something we know is harmful and then see what's going on. But we do know enough from some studies we've done on rats. So we know that adolescents with metabolic syndrome, they lose volume in their hippocampus. And that does many things, but affects the frontal lobe, which is the executive function. And I promise you that every teacher you will talk to knows what the executive function is, and they want it working really well because that's where memory and quick learning and response, all those things happen. So, poor diet, a cognitive decline related to poor diet with high sugar intake. So these are the things. So teachers need kids to have good memory. They need kids to have speed for testing. They want kids to be creative. Flexibility. If you focus on attention and flexibility, so you're teaching a class, and you have your class doing a math paper, and you say to your class, right after recess, remember to bring in your boxes that you're supposed to bring for your Valentine's. This is just an example I'm making up. So the kids that have a good diet, all of these things can work at once. So they can stay focused on the math, they can pay attention, and they can be flexible when they leave thinking, I've got to remember to do that. Those are the kinds of students that are going to get the best out of what the teachers have to offer. And so what we're trying to say to teachers, don't fool with this. Make it important so that your kids have the equal opportunity. Because what we know, and we know this with almost any health issue, this type of diet follows poverty more likely than middle or upper class families. And the reason being is that poor foods are inexpensive. That's one reason. Another is that the health literacy of parents living in low-income families is often lower, not always, but is often lower than parents living in middle-class and high-class families. So we need to level the playing field, or at the very least we need to do no harm at school, because many children receive 66% of their calories at school. And so through school breakfast, through school lunch, through vending machines, through school stores, and we need to make sure that those are good calories. That's the conversation we've had for years. So then the crash, what happens? We talked about the extreme spike in blood sugar, and here's what happens. Mood swings, irritability, anxiety, fatigue, and the dreaded brain fog. I mean, when you have high blood sugar and it crashes, most of us can feel it even if we have normal blood sugars. If we go out for a long run or a hike and all of a sudden we've used up all of our, quote, blood sugar, our brain, our hands start to shake and we're like, I need food. I need a glass of orange juice. I need whatever. So this is what children are experiencing, except at the same time we're trying to teach them how to read, how to do math, how to do chemistry. And if you have all these things going on, how are you going to learn chemistry, biology, French? It's going to be very difficult. And chronically high levels of blood sugar. So people that keep that blood sugar up all the time through their diet. Now, blood sugar is glucose, what's your glucose level in, and it can be from refined sugar, or it can be from a variety of simple carbs. It can be also from complex carbs. It doesn't spike as easily with complex carbs. Okay, let's see. So what we also are teaching is that the bad food, I'm going to use the term bad food, pushes out the nutrient-dense food. And so iron deficiency decreases attention span, alertness, and creates learning problems. Low consumption of B vitamins increase forgetfulness, moodiness, dizziness, and reduced alertness. And of course we know about calcium and weak bones. In fact, there's studies now on middle school and high school kids about their lack of calcium, because we know that the normal drink is a soda instead of calcium. And good nutrition pushes out the empty calories, so we've got that going away. So we know that there are studies that show that kids that have diets dense with fruits, vegetables, whole grains, dairy, fiber, and lean protein perform better academically. And students are less likely to fail literacy tests than peers who ate less complete and nutritious diet. Okay, so what about the rats? We can study rats. And what we know is that rats who overconsumed sugar had damaged synaptic activity. So in other words, the brain cells weren't talking to each other as well as they're supposed to. And what we know is that insulin resistance impairs brain cell communication and inhibits successfully forming memories. So insulin resistance goes up in the brain and cognition goes down. So in other words, when there's a lot of glucose in the brain, the rats showed less ability to run through the maze. Okay. So obesity, which is often associated with high sugar intake, is associated with poor academic performance beginning as early as kindergarten. So this was a study of 6,250 kids, K through 5. And so they saw that kids who were obese scored lower on math tests than non-obese children. So anytime you can say to teachers, okay, it isn't just us, it isn't just thoughts we have at a meeting. There's actual proof out there that the healthier the kid is that's sitting in your desk, the better they're going to be able to perform on the things that we ask you to do, which is to educate our children. This is some interesting information from the OPI. So these are students, and we can't say this is a cause of it, but it's interesting, who do not drink a pop or diet during the past 7 days. So in a week, these kids had no pop. Okay, percentage of those. So of the kids that had A's, 33% of them, 0.5, did not have a pop in the last 7 days. Whereas the kids that had D's and F's, only 14% were off of soda. That's not diet. These are sugar drinks. And so these are the grades, and the kids were asked how much pop they drank. The D's and F's, 37.5 of them drank a pop 1 or more times per day during the past 7 days. 1 or more times per day. And that pop, we don't know if that was a big gusher or whatever they call them at the convenience store, if it was a 64, 44, 32, certainly wasn't an 8 ounce. It's hard to find an 8 ounce bottle of pop. So this is another problem that we've experienced in our school district. There are teachers and parents who refuse to allow their children to drink chocolate milk at lunchtime. And this controversy, you can Google it up and there's experts galore, but the majority of the experts say that because chocolate milk is nutrient dense in calcium, protein, and vitamin D, that it is the better choice. Our school district uses True Move chocolate milk, and so it has 12 grams of lactose and 6 grams of added sugar, which is only 1.5 teaspoons, for a total of 18 grams of total sugar. Now there's a new milk on the market called Fairlife, which actually filters out some of the lactose, the chocolate milk, and it has a total of 12 grams of total sugar. And so the 4 ounces of juice that the kids get, yes, they do have vitamin C, but they don't have all these other advantages. And the worry is that kids are not getting enough calcium because they're not drinking milk at home. And unfortunately, children like the chocolate milk over the white milk, the plain milk. So we're just encouraging teachers to rethink how they view this, and possibly parents down the road. So these are the CDC dietary guidelines, or research. So school breakfast program, increased academic success, reduced absenteeism. So if kids know they're going to get to school and eat, then they get there on time. Improved cognitive performance. Skipping breakfast, decreased cognitive performance. Lack of adequate consumption of specific foods, lower grades. Deficits in specific nutrients, lower grades, higher absenteeism. This could be health-related, and tardiness. And then the insufficient food intake. And this is something that we know we need to work on more to try to figure out how to identify the kids with insufficient food intake and what to do about it both at school and what they can take home with them. So that's CDC. So how would we reduce sugar overall? Well, you just have to kind of look at what tobacco control has done. Affordability, a sugary drink tax. In some communities, that's already happening. Acceptability. health warnings in high-sugar drinks, new nutrition facts label. So that's going to help. So acceptability. So if you had a pop on it and it showed what a fatty liver looks like, perhaps that would discourage some kids or some parents. Appeal. So restricting advertisements to children. Currently, Coca-Cola has a new campaign out called It's the Feeling. And instead of comparing Coke to Pepsi or Coke to some other product, which is an old advertising technique, what they're saying is that you get a certain feeling, and of course, they're all wonderful feelings. They're happiness. They show young, attractive models having fun, having romantic moments, being successful on the field, all of these things. And so how do we do what tobacco control did and say, no, 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 we cannot be advertising? Or if you go to the cereal aisle in your grocery store, you can see how the boxes of the crummy cereal have cartoon characters, have bright colors, all of those things. And if the high-protein cereal cost $1 a box and the Fruit Loops cost $10 a box, you would see a change in behavior. And availability. If, for instance, a low-income mom with 3 kids and a low-paying job drives up to McDonald's for dinner, and if the kids' meal came out automatically with the milk and the apple instead of the pop or the juice and the fries, that would be making the healthy choice the easy choice for parents. So what are our next steps? Our next steps is to continue the Smart Snack assessment, continue to report to the school board, offer sugar on the brain to teachers, lobby for breakfast in the classroom, and review the nutrition standards under the district's policies and procedures, making recommendations. So we are happy to share any of our data and our tools to help any of you move forward. The Sugar on the Brain presentation, we could send that to you. We could send you our survey that we're doing for Smart Snacks. Don't hesitate to contact us. So thank you for hosting these 3 webinars, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer some.
I'll go ahead and unmute everyone, and then they can ask questions if they have any, okay?
Recorded somewhere that we can listen to again later?
So the recording will be up on the Montana Office of Rural Health and AHEC website, and I can share the link in our chat box.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Is there any other questions?
I was kind of thinking, I don't know, you may already have some of this out there, but just educating parents a little bit, that whole sugar intake part you had was very educational for me. And it'd be nice to share that with other parents, so when they're making those choices for their kids or helping their kids make those choices, they're aware of the effects of that sugar on the brain. And
Is this Mary Rose?
It is. Sorry, I should have introduced myself.
That's okay. One of our next big projects that we're thinking about is taking our Unplug and Play events to local schools, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, where we'd have a dinner for families, a play time, and an educational piece. And I think that the Sugar on the Brain would be a great educational piece for parents.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, then I guess we can wrap it up. Thank you again, Mary.
You're welcome. Thank you for hosting.